What's going on? It's your man Louie T here with another installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. Thank you guys for joining me. It's Friday. It's Friday. Just got paid. Friday night. Friday. Feeling good? Hope the week has treated you well. Big games on the NFL docket this weekend. We're going to talk about it. Couple of rookies entering the QB fray. So we've got some more rookies to keep track of. I'm excited, man. We've been charting the progress of the 3 rookies who have started every game this season, and now we've got 2 more getting an opportunity to get their feet wet in the National Football League. So we'll talk about those 2 getting an opportunity this week. Got a massive showdown between the Baltimore Ravens and the Washington Commanders. That's the money matchup of the week. We'll talk about that in particular, as well as the other 13 games on the slate. Thursday night leftovers to get to from last night's 36-24 victory for the 49ers over the Seahawks, and so much more on the 457th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 457th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Of course, I'm your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. As I mentioned earlier, hope the week has treated you well. Hope this Friday is treating you outstanding. And hope you're heading into the weekend with good vibes, right? So wanted to touch on something that I've been wanting to talk about for a minute here. Never got a chance to talk about it because I hadn't had a Friday podcast, I think, in the last, 2 weeks maybe. But I wanted to talk a little college football. And 2 weeks ago, I watched some crazy finishes: Alabama, Georgia, and Virginia Tech and Miami. And I remember thinking to myself, watching the Tech Bama game or Tech Miami game was Friday. And so me and my wife were sitting there watching the finish of that game, and it was crazy. And the officials, so just to give you a quick backstory, it was a back and forth affair. Virginia Tech was up in that game. Miami came storming back, took the lead late. And then Virginia Tech got the football late, got to about the 30-yard line, threw like a Hail Mary, and, it was caught by a receiver in the back of the end zone, kind of fighting for the football. Ball comes out late. It was initially ruled on the field a catch and a touchdown. Virginia Tech goes crazy. I'm like, that's not a catch. But they ruled it a catch on the field. And anybody could see that that was not a catch. But they ruled it a catch on the field, and that was the most important part. And so they go look at replay, and this replay takes like 7 minutes because they're and here's so I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, but in this particular instance, I am, because I think the ACC got on the phone, and there were ACC officials doing the game because it was 2 ACC teams. And I think ACC officials said, hey, look, one, this is a bad look for the conference. That's not a catch, and we can't let that be a catch. You guys made a mistake calling a catch on the field, and now we got to clean up your mess. That's number one. And you're going to look bad either way, right? Because if they called it incomplete, then it would have been fine. Because you could have just said call stands on the, call stands is call on the field. We didn't have enough evidence to overturn it, and everybody would have said, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. But once you called it a touchdown, there was not enough evidence to overturn it. Although I felt like it wasn't a catch, there wasn't enough evidence to say that it wasn't a catch. So I think the ACC officials told those referees, overturn that call, make it incomplete, because it is incomplete, but that's not how you apply it to the letter of the law. The letter of the law says you need indisputable evidence that it is, in fact, the other way. And they didn't have that. My conspiracy theory is that the ACC, without Miami being undefeated, is irrelevant. Sure, Clemson could get back in the mix after losing to Georgia in the first game of the season, win all the rest of their games, and they could be right back in the mix. Sure. But Miami has been a top 10 team pretty much all season long. They've got a Heisman Trophy candidate. That's going to keep their profile high and alive, because without Ward, without Miami being good, the ACC really ceased to exist right now. Clemson, cool, but their meal ticket right now is Miami. They lose, they're no longer undefeated, and especially losing to a team like Virginia Tech, they're done. They're Dunsky, and I think they felt like they needed to ensure that they kept the Hurricanes' quest for a national championship and an undefeated season alive as long as they can. It's funny because the following week, the football gods almost intervened and said, yeah, you host Virginia Tech the week before, so we're going to get some get back this week. I went to sleep on the game. Miami was down like, I think it was 35-14 or something when I went to sleep. I was like, oh yeah, they losing this game. And it was in the third quarter. They were getting their ass kicked. I woke up the next morning and they won the game something like 9-38 or some craziness. I think it was like 38-7 when I went to sleep or something crazy like that. And I woke up the next morning and they won like 39-38, 41-38 or 41-39 or some craziness. And I was like, what the hell happened in that game? Cam Ward happened in that game. So he's strengthening his Heisman. I mean, these are games they're supposed to win. Cal is a dangerous team. They went there on the road and almost got beat. But when you come back in the fashion that Cam Ward has come back the last 2 weeks, it strengthens your Heisman resume. We'll see if he can keep it up. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman, but we'll see. The Georgia-Alabama game was crazy. It reminded me of the LSU-Bama game from like 2019 with Burrow and Tua. That was just insane, especially the finish. This one was a little bit more extreme, though. Like the ebbs and flows, the dramatic swings, the immediate momentum shifts late in that game was nuts. That another game that I gave up on. I turned that game off in the third quarter. Like, this game's over. Second quarter, turned the game off. Right before halftime, turned the game off. And, my wife is like, I don't think this game's over. I think my wife, what's crazy is I got to give my wife some credit. My wife be throwing darts in the dark a lot of times. She just be saying shit. But you know what? About 70% of the time, those darts hit the board and they hit damn near close to the bullseye. I'm like, there's times when she says things and I'm like, hey, whatever, man. What the hell are you talking about? And then the shit happens and, she's like me. If she's right, you're going to know she's right. And boy, she was like, I told you. Turn the game back on. So we turned the game back on. And it was crazy. Wow. What a game. I thought for sure Georgia was going to win that game after they came back and took the lead. And in one play, Bama takes the lead right back from them. And then Georgia goes right back down the field, but they can't get it in the end zone and they lose. It's just an incredible game. Then I told you guys, I told you Notre Dame wasn't shit. And as soon as I told you that, the next week they lost. I said, Alabama ain't shit because Jalen Milroe ain't shit. And I wish that kid nothing but the most success, and I do see improvement in his game. I will admit that. I still don't see him as an elite passer. I don't see him as a guy that is a game changer at the next level, but he has some talent. That said, I'm like, I just don't believe in him. You know, a lot of times it feels like he's just throwing the ball up for grabs, and he's got a freshman receiver that's out of this world. I think a lot of people are talking about the Ohio State freshman receiver as the best receiver in football. I don't see that. I see the Alabama receiver. This guy's nuts. This guy is nuts. And I just think he's throwing the ball up to these dudes and they making plays for him personally. And then when it's not there, he's just tucking it and running it. But I said, Alabama ain't shit. I'm just not buying it. Don't love their defense. Don't love their offense. And I think they're going to get got. Did I think it was going to happen against Vanderbilt? No, I didn't. I could not have known that Vanderbilt was going to do what they did in that game. And I watched pretty much that entire game because it felt different. Watching it, I'm like, at some point, Alabama's going to catch these mofos. And once they get even, you know the rule, even leaving, right? All right, once they catch them, it's over. But they never caught them. And you could feel the momentum building and the confidence building with every passing second in that game. Every time they forced a turnover or every time they scored a touchdown or had a big play, you could sense, no, Vanderbilt isn't going to wilt here. They're not going to give in. They're not going to collapse. They're going to do this. And you could tell Bama didn't have any answers for what they were doing offensively. And that Pivia quarterback guy, look, man, my wife, we had an argument about this. She's like, he's trash. He can't play at the end. I said, man, I think that dude can play in the NFL. I think he's a Taylor Heineke backup type of guy that comes in, gives you energy. Like, he might not get drafted, but I think if he goes undrafted and gets on somebody's, roster as a priority free agent, I bet you he's going to make somebody's team. Or he's going to be on someone's practice squad, and eventually he's going to infiltrate the ranks of the NFL as a backup quarterback. I think you can do something with that kind of moxie, that kind of grit that he has. Like, again, it gave me Taylor Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick type vibes. That fourth down pass he had for the touchdown, 4th and 1, we're talking, and he says, "Nah, I want it all." That dude, there's a play at the end for a touchdown on a boot where Bama has 2 defenders in his face. And he makes this crazy sidearm throw. And he did that on a 2nd down late in the game to kind of ice it too. And he was just fantastic, man. I was really impressed. And that's not the first time I've watched him play and I walked away saying, there's something to this dude. Anyway, so Bama has, the shocking loss. And all I told my wife was Nick Saban would never, right? It's the same thing that Cowboys fans were saying after they beat the Giants. Like, Dan Quinn's defense would never have allowed Daniel Jones to do that. And I'm thinking Nick Saban's teams would never lose to Vandy. As a matter of fact, they used to beat Vandy by 35 points every time. They would never. So, times are changing, right? Times are changing. My most disappointing performance of last weekend was Tennessee. I told you I was impressed with Tennessee. I thought they had a chance. And then they go to Arkansas and absolutely stink up the joint. They got a young quarterback, and he looked young. He looked ill-prepared for that environment, that moment. The SEC is just tough. Every environment is the biggest, baddest, toughest environment you've ever been in. Arkansas was starving on a Saturday night for a win like that over a top 5 team that they haven't had in quite some time, and they got it. And I was disappointed in the way Tennessee looked in that game. And their quarterback looked overmatched. He looked overwhelmed. There's a big stage. Those were bright lights, and he got stage fright. It happens. But they're no longer a team that I look at in that same vein anymore. I think right now, and obviously we're going to find out about Texas. They're in the SEC now. We don't have to play that game anymore where they're all the way off in the Big 12, beating up on Kansas and Kansas State and Baylor. No, we get to see them, in the SEC with the big dogs, and we'll see them play against the creme de la creme. And if they can come out of there alive in their first year in the SEC, then they are worthy of being the number one team in the nation. But right now, they look like the best team in college football to me. But we'll see. College football is going to be crazy this year because I don't know if anybody gets out alive unbeaten. I don't know if when we get to the college football playoffs, I don't know if anybody in the major three conferences comes out alive without a loss, unscathed. I don't think that's going to happen. Bama already has one. Georgia already has one. Tennessee already has one. Ole Miss already has one. Texas is going to lose to somebody in the SEC. I feel confident that it's going to happen. The only team that could probably escape, and I'm not feeling Will, whatever his name is for Ohio State that transferred from K-State. I'm not feeling that guy. And they got a big one this week. They play Oregon, right? They could easily lose to Oregon. But I'm not feeling Ohio State necessarily. And so they're the only one though. Them and maybe Oregon out there in the Big Ten now. Oregon, obviously still got Michigan lurking, but they got quarterback issues. We watched that last week. They couldn't beat UW. This probably feels like whoever wins this game between Ohio State and Oregon is going to win the Big Ten overall and probably go undefeated. Penn State's still lurking, but I don't think they're going to be a factor in all of this. So we will see. But a lot of interesting storylines going on in college football right now. So, and I'm starting to watch these quarterbacks, starting to kind of look around and see what the scene looks like. And we'll see what goes on as that season continues to forge forward. But I digress. Let's get to the proceedings this evening, and we start with the Gem Droppin Session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So, before we get to our money matchup of the week, Commanders and Ravens, let's talk about these two new rookie QBs being tossed into the fray. I'm excited, man. My wife, I told her that the Thursday night game next week held no interest to me prior to this move being made. It's Broncos and Saints. You know what the storyline is there. Sean Payton going back to New Orleans for the first time since he retired and left the Saints organization. So that's going to be a big deal. I don't give a shit. Okay. I don't care. That's really for the Saints fans. However, now that they're starting Spencer Rattler, I'm all in. Okay. You got my attention. I'm listening. I'm watching. So I love the decision to bypass Jake Hayner, who looks the part of an NFL backup quarterback, and go to the guy that I think ultimately is going to unseat Derek Carr in New Orleans, and that's Spencer Rattler. I think this guy has a chance to be a steal in this past year's draft. I told you this dude is the wild card of that draft. And similar to how I felt about Sam Howell in the 2022 draft, I think this kid could be a steal. And he just needs an opportunity and patience. And I think he's going to get both in New Orleans. So here's his opportunity. He's going to be exciting. He's going to run around. He's going to make plays. He's going to make some mistakes. But he's got a big arm. He's an athlete. He's undersized, but he's able to overcome that with a lot of intangibles and talents that will allow him to have a chance to flourish in the NFL. And I can't wait to watch him this week against Tampa. And I really think he's got a shot to beat them. But I look at Todd Bowles and I say, man, Todd's probably going to heat his ass up. I mean, Todd is going to be licking his chops saying, oh, man, rookie quarterback. Yeah, got me a chance to get one of them. I think he's going to try to bag him one this weekend. So um, that's a tough matchup, but he's at home, divisional opponent. I wouldn't be shocked if the Saints won that game. I'm looking forward to seeing what Spencer Rattler does in that ball game. But the real main event, the real attraction with the two new rookies getting an opportunity is Drake May. Who are we kidding? This is the third overall pick in the draft. Number 1 and number 2 are already starting. Has started every game this season, and we didn't know when. We knew this wasn't an if situation. We knew it was a when situation with Drake May. Like, we knew Jacoby Brissett wasn't going to lead this Patriots ragtag bunch to anywhere but doom. So it was only a matter of time before their head coach, Gerard Mayo, said, all right, enough of this shit. Hey, Drake May, you're up. Get ready. And, last week, that was, I think, the final straw. They had no business losing that game to the Dolphins. The Dolphins are awful right now. And the Dolphins were awful in that game. And they tried their hardest to lose that game, and the Patriots just weren't good enough. They didn't have enough juice. And Drake may be able to provide them with that. And they probably should have started them last week. They were at home. It was a bad team they were playing. That was the one. And I get it. You wanted to see if Jacoby could lead you to a victory and maybe hold off the pitchforks and torches and maybe let Drake sit and cook some more on the sidelines for a little bit longer. A win last week would have probably bought you another 2 or 3 weeks. But it was such an ugly loss that you're like, okay, 10 points against the Dolphins. Okay, all right. Can't do this shit anymore. And so Drake May is getting the start. Unfortunately, it's against the Houston Texans. And I really didn't want him starting his first game against the Texans defense. It's not that the Texans defense is this ferocious animal that can't be tamed, but they're a really good group. And the Patriots aren't very good. And I could see them devouring Drake May and him running around for his life, maybe making a mistake or two, trying to play He-Man and put the cape on, and it doesn't go well. I would have much rather seen him out there against the Dolphins defense. But that said, he's getting his opportunity at home versus the Texans. They're going to run the ball a ton, try to take pressure off of him, but he's going to have to throw it for them to win. And I'm anxious to see what kind of plays they call for him. Alex Van Pelt, what do they do? I think it's going to be in their best interest to get him out of the pocket, move the launch point, call some designed runs, right? Like, use his athleticism. He can move a little bit. I'm not telling you to call 7 designed runs, but 3 or 4 just to keep the defense somewhat honest. I think there should be some RPO in there as well. Like, you got to make him comfortable. Too often, and this is the biggest issue I see with a lot of these coordinators with these young quarterbacks, which is why I think you've seen Jaden Daniels have so much success outside of him just being super prepared, is Cliff Kingsbury went to Jaden Daniels and said, what do you like? What are some concepts you like? What are some of the things you like to do? And we're going to implement that, right? We're going to play to your strengths. So often these coordinators have their playbook and they're like, hey, you got to learn my playbook. You got to learn my verbiage. You got to get down with what I do. And I'll tailor some of the things I do to what you do, but it should be the other way around. Let me tailor my playbook around the things that you do well, right? Not I'm going to take, it should be the other way around. It shouldn't be I'm going to take my playbook and pick out plays that fit what you do best. It should be I'm going to take your skill set and I'm going to tailor my playbook to what it is you do well, right? I'm going to play calls that you're comfortable with, play calls that suit you well, that you can go out and execute with confidence. And too often you get these play callers that say, hey, here's the playbook. They toss them this 250-page playbook and say, hey, get to work, right? And I hope that for Drake May's sake, Alex Van Pelt doesn't just say, hey, here's the playbook, young fella. I'm going to give you 25 plays. I'm going to, minimize this thing. I hope he says, hey, Drake, what are you comfortable with? And they rep that this week. and they get him into some situations that allow him to be comfortable. They get it out of his hands quickly. Please don't try to do drop back this week and just let him sit back there because he'll get his ass kicked in his first game of his career. The O-line isn't great in New England, and the run game hasn't been great either. So you don't want to put too much on his plate. Get the ball out of his hands quickly. Utilize your weapons, the limited ones that you do have. Use him as a runner. That's going to keep them at bay a little bit if they have to respect and honor him and his legs. I'm going to be interested to see how they use him. If they just throw him out there, run the football, and try to drop him back, it's going to be a long day. But looking forward to seeing what the number 3 overall pick looks like for the New England Patriots. Drake May making his first start in week number 6. I thought it would take a little bit longer for him to get on the field, to be honest with you. But it's been so bad in New England. And we figured it'd be bad, right? They won the first game of the season. At least they're not winless because they easily could have been winless, right? Had they not won in week 1. It was comical to see, the owner, Robert Kraft, come into the locker room and, Gerard Mayo acting as if, hey, this is just the first of many wins. And I'm like, nah, bro, you're not going to win too many more games this season, but enjoy it, right? Enjoy it. I said it might be week 9 before you win again. And I don't anticipate them winning this game either, but it's good to see the youngins get out there, man. So add 2 more youngins to the ledger. That gives us 5 rookie quarterbacks starting in week 6. I can't wait to talk about them next week on the pod, see how all of them did and chart their progress, add them to the mix. I don't know how long we're going to see Spencer Rattler for, but I think he's going to take Derek Carr's job, and it could happen this season. If he comes in, lights the Bucs up, and they get to winning again, because they've lost, obviously, 3 out of their last 4. All right, they've lost 2 out of their last 3, have the Saints. After starting the season off 2-0, they are now 2-3 and are trying to get back to 500. And if he is able to do that against Tampa and give them a piece of first place, because at 3-3, if Atlanta, well, I shouldn't say that because Atlanta should go, theoretically speaking, to Carolina and win and get to 4-2. But if they can get a piece of second by beating Tampa and getting to 3-3, and then we'll see what happens thereafter. Let's say Derek Carr's ready in a month from now, but this kid's playing out of this world. Do you really sit him down? I can't imagine them benching Derek Carr, but stranger things have happened. So we'll stay tuned. I think he's the future in New Orleans, though. So we're going to get a little taste. Can't wait to see. But let's get to the money matchup of the week. In week 6, that's going to be the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens. It's all the rage. Everyone's talking about this game. You can't go anywhere without somebody giving you their 2 cents on this matchup. What's going to take place? Who's going to do what? Number 1 offense in the league in the Commanders versus the number 2 offense scoring-wise in the league in the Baltimore Ravens. You're talking about 2 teams that are hot right now. The Ravens, after a slow start at 0-2, have won 3 straight. They're 3-2. The Commanders, after losing in week 1, have rattled off 4 straight wins. The last 2 in decisive and commanding fashion. Meanwhile, the Ravens are scoring points like they're going out of style. They scored 35 in the rout of the undefeated Bills a couple of weeks ago on Sunday Night Football. And then last week, they put up 41 points in an overtime victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. So this one is one that everyone's got circled on the calendar. I am excited about. If you've watched my CNN episode 6.5, then you know who I think is going to win this game. And let me just start by saying this. Spoiler alert. I'm not picking against the Commanders the remainder of the year. Okay. We got one of them ones. I have the utmost confidence in my team every single week. I know we're going to lose more games this season. I'm not one of these people talking 16-1. Okay. But you're going to have to beat us. I'm not giving anybody the respect of, oh, we should lose this game. Nobody on the schedule is that good. No one commands that much respect. And we got one of them ones. So as far as I'm concerned, every week we should win. That's the confidence that one of them ones instills in a fan base. And I can't speak for everybody else. That's what one of them ones instills in me, is every week I got a shot to win. And unless you're coming with something that we just can't defend or we just don't have a handle on, expect me to expect to win. That said, I know this is going to be a fight. This is going to be an absolute brawl. And I know going into this game that anything could happen. I'm almost not shocked by any outcome outside of the Commanders blowing out the Ravens. That's the only outcome that would knock my socks off. If they beat the brakes off of us, it wouldn't shock me. I'd be disappointed, but I wouldn't be shocked. Okay. I know what they're capable of, and we haven't been in this type of environment against this type of opponent. We've been in a hostile environment already in week 3, but they were 0-2, and they were a different animal at that time. This is a totally different animal here with the 2-time league MVP, Derrick Henry, playing at King Henry-like levels, and that team just being who they are. So I understand the challenge that lies ahead, but when you talk about this matchup in particular, you're talking about 2 of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league squaring off. That's what everyone's talking about, and rightfully so. Okay. Lamar Jackson won the MVP last year for a reason, and he's playing at a high level again this season. They added Derrick Henry in the offseason, and although, we question how is he going to fit, the first game of the season against Kansas City, didn't think he got it enough. You could argue that for some inexplicable reason in week 2 versus the Raiders in the fourth quarter, after he had gotten it going, they stopped giving it to him and they ultimately lost that game. Since then, though, since that week 2 loss to Vegas, it's been the Derrick Henry show. Derrick Henry show starring Lamar Jackson, right? And these 2 are playing phenomenally well off of one another. And if you're going to beat the Ravens, it starts there. Slowing down Henry, slowing down Jackson on the ground. If you're going to beat the Ravens, you have to force Lamar Jackson to be a passer. And we're far removed from the days of Lamar not being able to beat you from the pocket because he can. But you stand a much better chance of defeating the Ravens if you force Lamar Jackson to stand in the pocket and beat you. Once he's able to get outside the pocket or he's able to use his legs as a runner consistently, you are halfway to your grave against the Ravens. You have to contain him, keep him in the pocket. They're going to call designed runs. Like, the biggest difference between Lamar Jackson right now and Jayden Daniels is, one, Jayden Daniels is a better pocket passer already. I don't think many people will debate that. The other is that the Ravens call more designed runs for Lamar Jackson than the Commanders do for Jayden Daniels. They're going to run it with Lamar anywhere from 9 to 15 times in this game, design runs. You have to be ready to defend that. And because you now have an extra blocker in the run game, because you now have the quarterback a part of this run game, it's hard to stop. They have to be prepared. They have to play with proper leverage. They have to play with proper contain. They have to play with proper rush lanes. Lamar Jackson is the most infrequently sacked quarterback in the league. Duh. He doesn't get sacked because you can't be super aggressive or he'll take off. You have to mind your rush lanes, and you have to be very cognizant of where he is at all times, and you have to make sure that he doesn't out-leverage you, and he's so damn fast that even if you think you got the proper angle, he can still out-leverage you and get outside. So we saw a phenomenal play from him last week. Low snap, bobbles it, picks it up, defender in his face, stiff arms him twice as he's falling out of bounds, throws a dart to Isaiah Likely for an unlikely touchdown. It's one of the most improbable plays you'll see in the red zone, but it's Lamar Jackson. It's just another day at the office for him. And so Derrick Henry in overtime rips off a 52-yard run or some big run like that, and pretty much puts them in the driver's seat to win the game, and they ultimately do. And it's that kind of quick switch that they can flip at moment's notice. They can turn the game on its head with a big play. Whether it's Henry, 87-yard run on the first snap of the game against Buffalo offensively, or it's Lamar Jackson, boom, just like that, gone, or making a big play. You got to be on your P's and Q's, Y's and Z's all the time. Defensively, I think the Ravens can be had. You look at them. Kyle Van Noy is playing excellent football. They're flying around like normal. Kyle Hamilton's a problem. When healthy, Marlon Humphrey is a really good corner. I've liked some of what I've seen out of Nate Wiggins, the rookie corner out of Clemson. I think they've done some good things defensively, but by no means are they as good as they were a season ago. They really don't have an elite pass rusher. Like I said, Van Noy has been doing a really good job, but Adafi Owe at times can be problematic, but Matabike isn't playing at the level he was playing at last year. And so I just think you can handle them. You pick your spots on how and where you run, but you can throw against them. And the same problems that I talked about Lamar Jackson presenting apply for Jaden Daniels, except deep ball accuracy better, pocket accuracy better, pocket passing better, right? Not as dynamic as Lamar as a runner. Probably not going to run it as many times as Lamar will in this game, but he can hurt you in the same ways. And so I think the Commanders will have opportunities. They just got to seize them. They got to take advantage of them, and they've done a really good job of doing that this year. And if you're the Ravens, conversely, you can take advantage of this Commanders defense. You can. They've gotten better. They've improved every single week. Last week was their most dominant performance. So they're playing with an abundance of confidence, but you can very quickly take that confidence from an 85 down to a 58 if you come out and you establish yourself early in this ball game. They don't have the swag just yet. They're getting it. And if they come out early and they're able to get some stops or force a turnover, it could be a long day for the Ravens. But if they go down the field and they score points, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, especially if it's a touchdown, you start thinking, here we go, shootout time. All right, let's saddle up. Go get your 6-shooter. This is going to be a wild, wild west shootout. And if you're the Ravens, you want to establish that early. Go right down the field, score on them. They don't have a prolific pass rush. They're not super athletic defensively. They got some guys that can run, but it's not the fastest defense in the world. So Lamar, if he is to break contain, should have opportunities to run and have a chance to make some big plays. Same with Derrick Henry. They've got to be physical up front. The run game has been an issue for Washington this season. Again, they're coming off of one of their better performances last week against the run. But again, that could all be undone with one Derrick Henry run. And so if you're Baltimore, you got to feel confident about what you can do against this Commanders defense. Defensively against the Commanders, if you're the Ravens, you're like, all right, we got to be on our shit. They're probably saying, hey, this kid's a rookie. Let's make him look like one. But we ain't met a defense that could do that yet. So until that happens, and I don't know if the Ravens have the dogs and the horses on their side of things to make that happen. So we'll see if they can kind of confuse him, show him one look, give him something else, make him uncomfortable, make him hold it a little bit longer than he wants to, see if the pressure and the rush can't get there. You got to be selective. If you're going to come with pressure, he's been got by pressure this season. Right. He's been caught, deer in headlights. Oh, shit. Pressure. Too late. Can't get out. Sack. He's been caught like that. Got caught like that last week against the Browns early in the ballgame. But Pressure beware, right? Pressurer beware. If you come with the blitz, you might be able to live by the blitz, but you can just as easily die by it as well. So this is going to be a fantastic matchup. Washington has one of the best special teams units in football. That's something they hang their hat on there as well. And I think special teams is going to play a big part in this game, some way, somewhere, somehow. So Tucker, made a big field goal last week. Up until that point, he had been struggling from deep. And I won't turn down a Justin Tucker missed 55 or 56-yard field goal in this game. Give us some great field position. I won't turn it down because they got the utmost confidence in him, as they should. And he made a kick last week from every bit of 56 or something like that to tie the game up. He's so clutch. But before that kick, 50s haven't been treating him well. And I'll take one of those. If he's willing to give up one, I'll take one. I'll take one of those. So, but it's up to the defense to force them into a long distance field goal and not let them get into that chip shot range, because he's not going to miss that. He's not missing from 37. He's not missing from 47. He's not missing from 49. You got to make him kick something from 55 and see if you can get him to miss that. But should be a great game. Bart Scott can't wait. And just so you know, I have the Commanders winning that game 33-31. So let's get to my Thursday night leftovers. Head all over to the fridge. See what we got. OJ, purple stuff. Sunny D. Let's go ahead and grab our Thursday night leftovers. See what we got. All right. Little chips and guac here. What we going with today? Little chips and guac. I've been eating a lot of salads lately, so I'm going to kind of try to stay lean. I'm just going to go with some chips and guac here. Get my first dip. For you, those of you who don't like ASMR, this is not the segment for you. 49ers last night. Brock Purdy threw 3 touchdowns or more and no interceptions for the 8th time in his career. He is now 7-1 in those games in which he's thrown 3 or more touchdowns and no interceptions. He had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Was really good last night in the win over the Seahawks. And he's now 7-1 in games in which he throws 3 touchdown passes or more and no interceptions. The only loss coming just 3 weeks ago to the Los Angeles Rams in a game in which they were up double figures in the fourth quarter and blew it. So generally, when Brock Purdy plays the way he played last night, the 49ers don't lose. And generally, they not only don't lose, they usually win big. Last night was an aberration. The last 2 times, really, because he's only done it twice this year, and one they've lost in the fourth quarter to the Rams, and the other was last night. And that was a close ball game, 29-24. They got hosed on a call, but it was a close ball game. Closer than it should have been, because they gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown, and they allowed Seattle to hang around, right? But if he plays like that, they're tough to beat. Next leftover. Have you ever had guac with pomegranate in it? When I went to South Beach last year, that was a good bite. Let me get my one. When I went to South Beach last year, I went to this bar, and I had guac with pomegranate in it for the first time. It was delicious. I must tell you, it was delicious. I'm hooked like dope. The Seahawks After the 36-24 loss to the 49ers in week 6 last night, Geno Smith is now 0-4 versus the San Francisco 49ers in his career. He has never beaten the 49ers. It's 4 straight losses for Geno Smith versus the San Francisco 49ers. He struggles versus the San Francisco 49ers. He's got more interceptions thrown in those 4 ball games than he does touchdown passes. So, for whatever reason, and he had 2 more interceptions and a touchdown last night. For whatever reason, Geno Smith doesn't like playing the San Francisco 49ers. So, just something to keep in mind, a little food for thought. You do the dishes. Next leftover. We get a big scoop here. That one was a little tangy, a little salty right there. Hit me a little in the back part right here. You know that little back part right there. Nick Bosa, per Next Gen Stats, had 14 pressures. I told you last night they were absolutely disruptive. They only sacked Geno Smith once, but they were so disruptive. Very disruptive. Per Next Gen Stats, Nick Bosa had 14 pressures against Seattle last night, tied for the most in a single game by a pass rusher in the last 4 years. Bosa had 49 rushes in the game. 14 of them resulted in pressures on Geno Smith. Almost 30% of his rushes on the night resulted in pressures. That's incredible. That is incredible. And you saw it right away. The very first pass of the game, he was in his face. And the interception that Geno threw on the opening possession, guess who? I'm like, Geno, don't open it. Geno, don't open. Geno, don't open the door, Geno. And it was Nick Bosa. And he airmailed it over the receiver's head right to the safety, Mustafa, for the pick. And I said, I told you, don't open the damn door, Geno. Those who don't hear, you know the rest. Next leftover. Seahawks, 6 losses in a row to the San Francisco 49ers. 6 in a row. Before this 6 in a row stretch, they were dominant versus the San Francisco 49ers. They had won 17 out of the previous 20 matchups, including the postseason. So they used to own, during the Russell Wilson period, they owned the San Francisco 49ers. But boy, have the tables turned now, and they can't buy a dub. And honestly, I don't know when the next time they're going to beat them. That's 6 in a row now for the 49ers over the Seahawks. Last leftover. Let's make it a good one. That was a good one. Niners now have the number 2 quarterback in the league in passing yards in Brock Purdy, the number 1 running back in rush yards in Jordan Mason, and the number 1 pass catching tight end in touchdowns in George Kittle. And he's not only tied for the most, or he's not only leading all tight ends in the league in touchdown passes caught, he's also leading the league, tied for the most touchdown catches on the season with 5. Had 2 last night, and now he's tied with a couple of receivers, Jamar Chase being one of the 2. So 49ers have been, getting better offensively. They've had a lot of trips into the red zone. They haven't been the sharpest in the red zone, but they're getting better. And last night was the first time that they've cracked the 30-point threshold. That was something that they did with regularity last season. So they're starting to get their affairs in order. and they got back to 500 last night. Granted, they've played 6 games. Everyone else has either played 5 or 4, but Mason was leading the league in rushing before last night, right? So, and although he didn't play most of the game, he had 9 carries for 73 yards. So he still had a pretty good game despite not playing most of it. So we'll see if the 49ers can take the momentum built in the game last night and kind of get hot. Kind of a sluggish start. They were 0-2 in the division, got their first divisional win last night. They were 2-3 overall. Now they're 3-3, back to 500. And let's see if they can't whip their season into shape. It's going to be tough because next week they've got the Kansas City Chiefs. So that will be an interesting football game, to say the least. So those are the Thursday night leftovers. Now we transition to the final segment of the show and my money picks of the week. Let's get it, man. Last week, your man Louie T was on fire. He was in fuego. 11-3 overall for the kid. Best week of the season by far and away. And I'm looking to back that up with another banger, right? So let's see if I can't somewhat duplicate the success from a week ago. So we're 1-0. We're off to a great start. 1-0. Got the game last night. San Francisco took care of business on the road, as I think most of us expected them to. So now we head to London. We got another international series game. Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Chicago Bears. This is technically a home game for the Bears, but we all know. We know how Jacksonville do it. This is really a home game for the Jaguars. And being that the Bears have not won on the road this season, they've never been to London in this environment with Caleb Williams and this iteration of their team. Jacksonville is more than accustomed to being in this situation. This is home for them, okay? This is what they do. This is not foreign to them. They don't have to adjust to the time frame or the field settings or being in London. They're not wide-eyed. They do this 2 times a year every season. So they're going to be acclimated to London, the schedule, how things are done, the field, everything. The Bears, not so much. And so all of those factors, Jacksonville winning for the first time last week, I think they're starting to really figure out some things on offense. Trevor Lawrence was outstanding last week. He's going to need to be outstanding again because this Bears defense is legit. But Caleb Williams is coming off of his best performance, but they still haven't won a game on the road yet. All 3 of their wins this season have come at home. This is going to feel like a road game because Jacksonville is like the home team in London. And so I don't see Chicago winning this game. I don't. And so I've got Jacksonville winning their second in a row after starting the season 0-3. And Doug Peterson looked like he was on the verge of being fired. I got him winning 2 in a row. And now we're going to look around and say, hey, don't forget about Jacksonville in the AFC South. If you know, somehow the Texans start to falter or the wild card starts to open up in that hey, look out for Jacksonville. We'll see. Got to win. You can't get to 3 in a row without getting your second one in a row first. Give me Jacksonville. I already told you I got the Commanders over the Ravens. So we'll continue on the slate and go to Arizona at Green Bay. Cardinals with an improbable win on the road last week over San Francisco. And so now they're playing with a little bit of confidence. And Green Bay, was able to bounce back last week, get a win on the road at LA versus the Rams. Wasn't pretty, but it was gritty, and most importantly, it was a dub. I don't trust Jordan Love at all, but what I do trust is Matt LaFleur, his ability to scheme it up, find a way to get it done. I think the Packers can and will be able to move the football on the Arizona Cardinals defensively, and as long as they don't turn it over, and that's been a problem for Jordan Love. Boy, he loves the turnovers, okay? He loves the turnovers. If he could just steer clear of them, They should win this game and win it comfortably, I believe. But if he wants to be generous, and we know Jordan Love loves to spread the love. It's the reason why his last name is Love. He loves to spread the love. If he can just be selfish and say, you know what, I'll keep the football to myself this week, they should win the game. And let's see if Xavier McKinney can stay on this ridiculous streak he's on. He's created an interception or a turnover in each of the first 5 weeks of this season as a new member of the Green Bay Packers. He's had an interception in every single game. Will Kyler Murray give him one in this game? We'll see. I've got the Packers winning the game in week number 6. Look, I don't need to spend a lot of time on Houston at New England. Houston's going to win this game. It's not a matter of if they're going to win. It's a matter of by how much. As long as they go in there, take care of business. No Nico Collins, so that'll be interesting, but they got more than enough talent to beat Drake May and the New England Patriots in his first start. I assume that they're going to take care of business, but I also assumed that Cincinnati was going to beat New England in week 1, and that didn't go well. But I feel a lot more confident in this Houston team taking care of business. Give me the Texans on the road, take care of New England. Bucks at Saints, NFC South family business. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's NFC South family business. Man, oh man. I want to pick the Saints so bad. I sure do. I'm telling you, man. Spencer Rattler's going to have a good game, I think. But I also think he's going to be a rookie, too. And I think the extra time off, and even though it's a stinging loss that they suffered at the hands of Atlanta on Thursday night last week, Baker Mayfield's playing at a high level. That's a good Buccaneers team. And hopefully defensively they'll get some of their pieces back because they were a little banged up defensively. But with that extra time off, hopefully they're a little healthier. But, man, I want to pick the Saints. But I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do the smart thing. Do the right thing, like Spike Lee. Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go on the road, make it 4-2 for the season, and still have a piece of first place in the NFC South. Eagles off the bye, hosting the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are the biggest dogs in week number 6, almost 10-point underdogs, 9.5-point favorites. The Eagles are. I'm like, where is this respect coming from? I mean, I'm assuming that this has more to do with the Browns' ineptitude than the Eagles' dominance. Eagles will be healthy coming off this bye. They'll have A.J. Brown back. They'll have Devontae Smith back. Saquon Barkley's been incredible to start the season. Lane Johnson will be back. They'll be whole again on offense. The defense still is a question mark. Is Nick Chubb playing this week? Don't know. My guess is probably not. But if he does play, things get very, very interesting in the city of brotherly love. If he doesn't, it's an ass kicking. It's BTA time. I've got the Eagles winning this game, no matter what. Even if Nick Chubb plays, it might get interesting, but it doesn't get ugly to the point where the Eagles lose the game. I've got Philadelphia coming off the bye, bouncing back and getting to 3-2 on the season with a win over the Browns. Colts at the Titans. Titans coming off of a bye. Colts coming off of a close loss to the Jaguars on the road. The Tennessee Titans are one of the worst teams in football. Their defense isn't half bad. Their offense is anemic and atrocious. And their quarterback has a penchant for turnovers. Will Will Levis start in this game? Don't know. Will Anthony Richardson start in this game? Don't know. It seems like he could start. He's trending towards starting. I'm like, yo, yeah, just let Joe start for one more week. Why rush him? For my sake, let Joe start for one more week. But Anthony Richardson is chomping at the bit to get back out there, and they're going to get him out there as soon as he's ready. I think he's going to play this week. But I have a level of comfort knowing that Joseph Flacco is sitting on the bench waiting in the event that anything happens to Anthony Richardson. And that allows me to sleep well at night with a great peace of mind, knowing that I picked the Indianapolis Colts to go on the road and beat the Tennessee Titans. And so I feel really good, peaceful, and serene. Give me the Indianapolis Colts on the road to take care of the Tennessee Titans. Los Angeles Chargers at the Denver Broncos. This is the game that I mulled over the most. The Chargers have struggled on the road versus the Denver Broncos. Whether Justin Herbert has or hasn't played, they've struggled routinely on the road, and that matters in these types of games. And although Jim Harbaugh is new to this and he doesn't give a shit about the past, it still matters. And so I started to lean towards Denver initially because I'm like, this matters. But then I said, did it matter that we hadn't beaten the Giants in what felt like forever when Dan Quinn showed up? And I said, no, it didn't matter. We took care of business. And I said, all right, then. They're coming off of a bye. Herbert's feeling good. They almost beat the Chiefs prior to the bye. The defense is really good. Bo Nix, while solid, isn't not having earth-shattering performances. That's a really good defense, but they can be had. You know, if not for a reckless pick six thrown, the Raiders could have been up 17-0 on the Denver Broncos in that game. And as such, I said, don't overthink this, bro. Chargers off the bye. Take the Chargers. So that's what I'm going to do. Give me the Chargers on the road to handle some AFC West family business. You know how the family do it. Or do you? Steelers at the Raiders. Another one that I thought about long and hard. Raiders are going to start second-year quarterback. Shucks. What's the Iowa quarterback's name? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Him. Yeah, they're going to start him this week. Does it matter? Not sure. To be continued. I'm not really high on the Steelers right now, and I really didn't want to pick them. This was less about Pittsburgh and more about the Raiders' ineptitude right now. While I think the Raiders desperately want to win and may actually get it done in this game, Aiden O'Connell, that's his name. Aiden O'Connell is getting a start for the Raiders. If the Steelers can just play the defense that I know they're capable of playing, and I haven't seen it in 2 weeks. They let Indianapolis go up and down the field on them. They let Dallas go up and down the field on them. They got some injuries to edge rushers, and that's pretty hurtful because now you got TJ Watt essentially doing it by himself. They could lose this game. But if it were Gardner Minshew, I probably would have picked the Raiders. But it's Aiden O'Connell, and he might be better than Gardner Minshew, but I just don't trust him. These are the types of games, I've said this already, the Steelers aren't good. But how many times have we said that and they still end up at 9-8? You know how they end up at 9-8? Winning games like this one. These are the types of games that they quietly win when you're not paying attention. Who cares about Raiders and Steelers in week 6? Unless you're one of those two fan bases. Nobody cares. And quietly, they'll go there and win the game 19-13, 23-19, and you'll forget about it. And then we'll get 5 weeks down the road and the Steelers will be 7-6, and you go, huh? Who'd they beat again? This will be one of those wins. Give me the Steelers on the road. Take care of the Raiders. And Antonio Pierce will be losing his shit on the sidelines. Falcons at the Panthers. I'll make this one quick. Panthers got their first win when they started Andy Dalton in week 3. Beat up those Raiders that we were just talking about. Haven't won again since. They're not a good football team. They struggle to do the simple things correctly, consistently. The Falcons themselves are struggling on offense, kind of snapped out of it on Thursday Night Football. Kirk Cousins did so in a major way, over 500 yards passing in that overtime victory. Still not sure if they've found all of the answers on offense. They've got too much talent to not be more effective, but feels like they're trending in the right direction. That extra time off gives them a chance to heal some of the guys that were out on that Thursday night game, like Troy Anderson, who's playing really good football this year. So I think all in all, it's one of those games. If you're Atlanta and you're serious about winning the division, you have to sweep Carolina. So gotta go to Carolina, take care of business, and I expect them to do that. Give me the Falcons on the road. Detroit Lions coming off the bye at the Dallas Cowboys. Big time matchup. America's game of the week. Not my America's game of the week, but nonetheless, this is a big one. Lions look like one of the best teams in the conference yet again. Cowboys coming off of a momentous Sunday night football victory on a last-second touchdown by Dak Prescott to Jalen Tolbert. They're feeling good. They've won 2 in a row, and they've done it in gritty fashion. Can they make it 3 in a row? And it may take another gritty performance to get it done. This Lions team is no joke. They're physical. They can run it. They can throw it. And defensively, it feels like they've gotten better, but they also felt like they took a little bit of a step back defensively against Seattle. So we'll see. It was the most points they had given up all season to the Seahawks in that game. But this is going to be a big test for both teams, really. Like, if you're Dallas and you're really about that life, this is a chance to show it. You've won 2 gritty performances in a row. Can you make it 3? That would change a lot of people's, perception of who you are as a football team. Conversely, if you're Detroit, this is an opportunity for you to return to the scene of the crime last year. You were jobbed. You were hosed by the officials in a game that you thought you outright won fair and square. Now you got a chance to go back to Dallas, complete the mission, and get the job done. And we all know revenge is a dish best served ice cold. And we've seen the Lions be cold-blooded. Can they do it again? My money's on Detroit. Give me the Lions on the road, fresh off the bye, to inflict pain, punishment, and a loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Sunday Night Football. Bengals at the Giants for the second consecutive week. The New York Giants will be without Malik Nabers, their leading wide receiver, who led the NFL in receptions, still leads the NFL in receptions despite not playing last week. That's how many times this man had been targeted in the first 4 games of the season. They went on the road and won last week without him. I'm looking at him and I'm saying, man, that shit was cute. Do it again. Did that shit one time, do it again. So I'm challenging the New York Giants. Do it again. Because here's the issue this week. You got it done last week against a Seattle team that's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And you got it done against Cleveland a few weeks ago. They don't score any points. You failed to do it against Dallas, sandwiched in between because you couldn't score enough points. The fact remains you don't score enough points. And although Cincinnati defensively stinks right now, they can score points. And you can't. They can get as high as 38. They did it last week. It wasn't enough. But are you capable of scoring 39? Because they can score 38. Now, here's the question. Is your defense good enough to stop them from scoring 30 plus? No one has been able to stop them from doing that 3 weeks in a row. Washington didn't do it. Carolina didn't do it. Baltimore didn't do it. Can you do it? If you can, you'll have a shot because their defense, not very good right now. Not very good. Not very good. But if you can't, because you can't score 30. And that's what I'm hanging my hat on. Joe Burrow going into that game is going to cook that Giant secondary. They better get to him. Because if they don't, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Yoshivash, and company are going to carve you up. Give me the Cincinnati Bengals to bounce back after a soul-crushing loss a week ago and get it done on Sunday Night Football. And last but not least, normally I don't give you the Monday night game. I say, wait till Monday. We never get a Monday podcast off. I'm probably going to change Monday to Tuesday podcast from here on out. I've told you guys this long ago. All right. I have certain principles that I live by. All right. One of those principles, one of those many principles, is if a team fires their head coach, they are going to win the next week with an interim coach if the firing is done in season. I don't know why this happens. I don't know how this always seems to happen, but it happens. Yes, the Jets are dysfunctional. Yes, the Jets season probably isn't going to amount to shit after doing what they just did. The football gods generally don't allow you to win after you do something so sloppily and disrespectfully. But there's always room for the big win right after a firing. And they're going to rally around Jeff Ulbrich, their new offensive play caller, and they're going to beat the Bills on Monday or the Jets. It won't be pretty. It won't be this high-flying, big point output scoring fest. It'll be a rock fight. And the Bills are going to get hit in the eye with an enormous rock. And the Jets will be the last team standing in this rock fight. And this will be a 20-16 game. This will be, 20-19, 19-16, 23-20. It'll be one of those types games. But the Jets are going to win at home and get a piece of first place. They don't deserve it. But I don't make the rules up. I just follow them. Okay. Give me the Jets on Monday night to get it done. 20-16. Some reason Josh Allen plays poorly against the Jets anyway, especially in New York. I feel good about that one. So, those are my money picks of the week. We'll see how I do. We'll see how I fare. Let's get to the comment section real quick. I got a couple of supers and then we'll get out of here. First up, got a comment from my guy, JP. Been a member for 8 months. Appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, good to see you as always. Likewise. Saw that David Montgomery dealt with harassment in 2019 from fantasy football managers and almost took his own life. Some real nasty, despicable people out there. Mental health is real. Social media is nasty. Be careful. I always tell you that. I didn't learn that mental health was a real thing or accept it as a real thing. And probably until maybe 7 years ago, my wife really put me on to the fact that mental health is a real thing. And people struggle with it every single day. Because I'm one of those mentally tough, you got to push through type people. And that's not always the answer, right? I've told you, social media is a dark, dark place. And it's not for everybody. And so social media has allowed people a platform to say and do things with impunity, essentially, you know? And until there are, regulations put in place, and it's hard to put regulations in place. That's why these apps are so popular. You can say and do whatever you want, essentially, on them, and there are no restrictions on what can be done. It's a dangerous place, and that's why you need to monitor if your kids are on them. You need to monitor what they're looking at and what they're exposed to, because it's a lot of bullshit up here. And a lot of people are these tough guys, fake tough guys on the interweb. And so you hate to hear something like that, but again, that's the society we live in. So glad that he didn't take his own life and he was able to get past that. You know, I don't give a shit what a fantasy football owner is bitching about. That's not worth taking your life for. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I digress. Tim Garris, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show Tim some love. Welcome him with open arms. Tim, welcome to the squad. Greatly appreciate you. Next super is from Silver V. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, Silver V. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, what's up, Louie? I feel like Pete Carroll never got the respect and admiration he deserved. Maybe another reason he should have gave the ball to beast mode. If he had won back-to-back Super Bowls, he would have been put in a different stratosphere, rarefied air, right? Not many coaches have 2 Super Bowls, let alone back-to-back fashion, right? That's next level stuff. You're probably talking Belichick, Reed, Noel, Johnson. That's it. It's a short list. Maybe Walsh. I don't think the 49ers ever won back-to-back, but it's a very small fraternity of teams that have won back-to-back Super Bowls. Maybe I don't think Don Shula won back-to-back with the Dolphins. I don't think so. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, it doesn't happen often, is what I'm saying. Maybe Lambeau might have won back-to-back back in the day. Maybe. I don't think he did either, but had he added his name to that list, it would have been a game changer. But he didn't want Marshawn to get the shine. He wanted it to go to Russell Wilson, and so his legacy took a slight hit. Let me make a quick correction to something I said earlier. Shout out to Rich for bringing this up. Aiden O'Connell did not go to Iowa. He went to Purdue. Noted. Thank you. I always mix those 2 schools up. I ain't even going to hold you. Same colors, same trash. One's a little bit more physical, Iowa is, than Purdue, and had a little bit more success too. Iowa's had a little bit more success than Purdue, but I look at them as one and the same, right? Anyway, thank you for that correction, so I can stop spreading misinformation. He went to Purdue, everyone, not Iowa. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. CD, OG, triple OG. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, because Joe Witt Jr. wasn't accustomed to 2 dominant defensive tackles. That's why it took a while to scheme up our D-line play. Maybe. I mean, if that's what you want to run with, cool. I'm not going to give him that out and say, well, he wasn't accustomed to 2 good defensive tackles. He didn't have it in Dallas. He knows how to play with good defensive tackles. He just took a while to scheme up the back end, find out who the corners were going to be. And I think he had to understand that, the one gap penetrating up the field disruptive style is cool if it's working, but it wasn't working. And not only was it not working, we were getting gashed because of it. So they had to adjust. And you didn't see that last game, guys flying up the field. And no, you stay in your gap. You play on either side of that blocker, and then when the ball carrier comes, you adjust accordingly and you go make a play. So they looked a lot more comfortable. There were a lot less rush lanes for the Browns to exploit, and I assume we're going to see much of the same versus the Baltimore Ravens, but we will see. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, Lou, that Wild Goose jersey stays putting in work. I always tell you, man, turn the goose loose. Turn the goose loose, man. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Turn the goose loose. All right. It's a wild goose for a reason. Set them free. All right. Let them put that work in. You know what it is. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the 457th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys on the other side of the weekend. I hope you enjoy your weekend and, the playoff baseball, hockey's back, preseason NBA, UFC, college football, etc., etc. And of course, the National Football League on Sunday and Monday. And then we'll be back on the Louie T Network podcast on Tuesday to break it all down. Until then, you guys have a good one. Take care. God bless. And good night. Louie T.